Greetings, I'm Troy Sims. I'm the Minister of Discipleship and one of the pastors at Williamsburg United Methodist Church. I'm glad you've tuned in today for our midweek video. I wanted to tell you something about myself. I went to Bright Divinity School on the campus of Texas Christian University. That's not a United Methodist school. They were affiliated with the Christian Church, the Disciples of Christ. And I really enjoyed my time there. It was transformative in many different ways. And I will say that there was a moment where I thought, maybe I want to be disciples of Christ. Part of that, honestly, the ordination process was much, much easier. And I thought, man, I wouldn't mind doing that. And some of my classmates were jumping ship from the United Methodist Church. But then I took United Methodist History and Doctrine. And all of a sudden I realized I couldn't do that. I'm too Wesleyan, I'm too Methodist. You know, part of that is I love our historic care and support for the sick, the marginalized, the oppressed. John Wesley's understanding of grace and our need for that grace and how that grace interacts with us just really resonated with me. But one of the things about Wesley that I really appreciated was his openness to other ideas. Now, don't get me wrong, there were parts of theology that Wesley thought were non-negotiable for Christians. But he was open to other thoughts. Even if he disagreed, he was okay with other people in the church having different ideas. And so I think about George Whitefield, an early Methodist, who was very much in the camp of thinking that predestination was a valid theology. Wesley disagreed with him vehemently over that. And yet, listen to what Wesley wrote in his eulogy for Whitefield. There are many doctrines of a less essential nature. In these we may think and let think. We may agree to disagree. You see, Wesley and Whitefield disagreed on this vehemently, and yet Wesley gave his eulogy because he still loved his friend. He still remained in relationship. And I just love this idea of a denomination that is what you might call a big tent church that allows for a diversity of thought. Listen to this other quote from John Wesley. Though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike? May we not be of one heart, though we are not of one opinion? Without all doubt, we may. I love that. Finding something common where we can love together even if we disagree. Hear this other quote from Wesley. Would to God that all the party names and unscriptural phrases and forms which have divided the Christian world were forgot, and that we might all agree to sit down together as humble, loving disciples at the feet of our common Master, to hear His word, to imbibe His Spirit, and to transcribe His life into our own. So that draws me back to Jesus. And I love what I see in Jesus. Jesus was known to eat with sinners. Jesus was also known to eat with social outcasts. So we read a story of him being at the home of Simon the leper. We see him eating with tax collectors. But we also see Jesus eating with Pharisees, people that he vehemently disagreed with on many different things, and yet he was willing to stay in relationship with them. That is such an important message for us, especially in our divided world. And I love that the United Methodist Church has historically been a big tent church that does allow for so many diversity, a diversity of thought, that not only do we welcome a diversity of thought, we encourage a diversity of thought. And I love this church in particular. I love seeing how two people that I know disagree vehemently on some big things in our world today, and yet I watch the care that they have for one another. That is the gospel, in my opinion, or at least part of the gospel. But there's always room for growth. So recently you may remember that the Greater Good group of our church offered the Braver Angels workshop called Depolarizing Ourselves, which helped us to look at ourselves and the way that we ourselves cause division with others. We've got another workshop coming up called Skills for Disagreeing Better on June the 14th. This will be an opportunity for us to find ways that even with a diversity of thought, that we can really listen to one another, that we can hear the perspective of one another, not necessarily to change minds, but that we get to know one another and that we grow in a deeper relationship. So I want you to know how much I appreciate serving this local church, which is certainly a big tent church where there are a diversity of thought. And I would love to hear your thoughts. What is it to you to know that you're a part of a church that is a big tent church in which you can have a diversity of thought on any number of things and yet stay in relationship with one another? Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope to see you Sunday.